Good afternoon, traders, and welcome to the In the Zone Daily ACD Recap for Thursday, June 2nd, 2016. In this recap video, I go over the best ACD setups that occur on this day. These videos are intended to show you the types of trades the ACD method offers on a daily basis. Let's take a look at what we had today. Now today, we had a beautiful fade of the A down that turned into a up through the pivot. And I want to try to make a couple points here and show you how you could have anticipated this day. Not predict it, but anticipated it. All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up my trade planner, and I'm going to show you that on the macro numbers, okay, we had a current number line of 7, and 30 days ago we had a +3 day, and you take we're going to drop the 3 today, so at the start of today, we have a +4, okay? But the thing I want to point out is that the 30 days ago, we had a +3, okay? So one thing that we know from our plus and minus days is that if we had a plus day or a minus day 30 days ago, we're looking to see if that will repeat, okay? Well, the same thing, I get in the habit of watching, what did we do 30 days ago? Well, 30 days ago, we had a +3. So I'm going to be anticipating to see if we can have a +3 day again today. What's a +3? A +3 is where you have an attempt at an A down that fails. That gives you a +1. And then you get an A up that confirms. That gives you +2. You add the two together and you get a +3. That's a +3 day. So knowing that 30 days ago we had a +3 day, I can anticipate that, hey, if things set up right, we could have a +3 day today again. And that's exactly what happened. Okay, so today we opened weak, okay? We opened inside of our pivot range, and when you have a supported pivot range, you want to see the open of be above the pivot range high, okay? And today was a little bit weak. We opened inside the pivot range. We then got below the pivot range and pushed down to the A down. And so I'm in the habit of fading every A, okay? Because if you pick and choose, chances are you're going to miss some, okay? Because the one that you decide, oh, I'm not going to fade this one, it just is too scary or it doesn't feel right, that's the one that's going to turn out to work, okay? And you just have to realize that if you fade every A on the first touch, you're initially risking 11 ticks, a hard stop, and then you're going to wait 5 minutes to see if it can confirm, and if it confirms, then you're going to get out. And hopefully, if it does confirm, your stop's going to be less than 11 ticks, okay? So it's an 11 tick stop, and today, if you would have done it, you would have had a risk of 11 ticks, and today it produced 17 points of profit, okay? So let me bring up the 1 minute chart, and let's show you here that price pushes down, touches the A down number. Now the A down number was 2086.82. That's not a tradable number, so you're going to have to choose. Are you going to round up to 87 or are you going to round down to 86.75? If you would have rounded down to 86.75, that was the low today, and you might have gotten filled and you might not have gotten filled, okay? And you might have missed it. Maybe to ensure that you catch all of them, you know, you can put your order like 2 ticks in front. I wouldn't go any farther than 2 ticks in front though, okay? That would be, anything more than 2 ticks in front, I would consider that chasing, okay? But if you put your order 2 ticks in front, sometimes the market just blows through it and gives you heat, okay? And you're taking extra heat, okay? But sometimes it doesn't do that. So you never know how it's going to react. So you're going to have to come up with something that's consistent for yourself. You know, it's like I'm going to go 2 ticks in front every time, or I'm going to put my order at the number and I'm going to round up, or I'm going to put my order at the number but I'm going to round down, okay? Either way, today if you would have rounded up to 87, chances are you would have gotten filled. If you rounded down to 86.75, you know, I don't know how many contracts were filled there, but chances are yours wasn't going to be one of them, okay? That's just something you're going to have to figure out personally what you want, how you want to handle it. Okay, so 87 gets filled here. Your stop is going to be 84.25. It spent no time, you know, below the line and immediately starts to bounce. This was a great one. So this is a good A to fade because we're anticipating that the A down is going to fail and we're going to get an A up that's going to succeed, and we're going to get a +3 day. Okay, so that's how we're going to anticipate this, and so you want to fade this A down. Now, also I want to, after you're in the trade, you want to start looking for reasons to hold it or reasons to get out. Okay, the reason to hold it would be if it bounces immediately. Okay, that's a really good sign. Okay, the next point you want to watch for is the bottom of the opening range. If price can get back into the opening range, that's a really good sign to hold longer. Okay, I want to point out a pattern here. This big bar here, and then this bar that touches the A down, and then this bar. These three bars right here are what they call in candlestick charting a morning star reversal pattern. Okay, so these three bars is a morning star reversal pattern, and I believe, if I'm right, once it trades above that pattern, above this bar, that's your go signal, and your stop would be below the low of the lowest point here. Okay, so you've got this morning star pattern here. That's a really good sign. That's a reversal pattern. You've got to close back into the opening range. That's another good sign. Keep holding. Okay, and then as price continues to push and it gets above the opening range, that's even more reason to hold, because remember, we're anticipating a +3 day, and the A down has failed. They could not push it down here and keep it below the A down, and we're already back above the opening range. This is the reason to hold on. Okay, because if they can't confirm this A, then chances are they're going to confirm this A. Okay, now as price gets in this area, it goes sideways for a bit, and I want to point out to you some reasons why, so that in the future you'll understand what's going on. Because we got below the pivot range, now we're fighting the pivot range. We're trying to get back above the pivot range, and it's having a hard time getting back above the pivot range. All right, so this is why it's kind of going sideways here. As it pushes up here, this is not a good A to fade, okay, for a number of reasons. One is we've had a failed A down already. Okay. Two is we've worked our way through the pivot range. So now we are through the pivot range. And so if we confirm this A up, that's a very powerful signal, and you don't want to be fading this A. Now, it worked for about 3.5, maybe 4 points here, and it was the first touch. Okay, and maybe that's why it worked, but I would tell you to not fade this A. This is not a good A to fade, even though it worked for 3 or 4 points of fade here. Okay, and then price was able to push back up, and in this area we confirmed the A up. And at this point, if you hadn't gotten long here, this is your signal to get long with the A up. And where's your stop? Okay, here you're going to use, I would use a closing bar back into the opening range. Okay, that's where I like to put my stop. Fisher says when you get an A up through the pivot, you can use the bottom of the pivot range as your stop. Okay, so normally he would have his stop down here at the bottom of the opening range, but since you've gone through the pivot, he reduces his risk by using the bottom of the pivot range. Me, I say, if it closes the bar back into the opening range, I'm done. Okay, so this was a nice A up that it took forever here. It went sideways after it confirmed. And some of you who have read the book know that Fisher talks about using twice the time of the opening range. If it hasn't gone anywhere in your favor within 2 times the opening range, then get out. I find that that doesn't work very good with the ES. It might work good with crude oil or something like that, but with the ES it doesn't work good because sometimes the ES just takes its time. Okay, so if you would have used 2 times, you would have used these 2 bars here as your point to get out, you would have missed this move. Okay, so if you got a confirmed A up, just hold it, and if they close the bar back into the opening range, then get out. Okay, but as long as they haven't closed the bar back into the open range, just keep holding. Okay, I know Fisher talks about having a maximum. If price isn't, he talks about the bus people. If everybody can get filled at that price, how good of a trade can it be? Well, you can see today it was a good trade, even though lots of people could have gotten on board here. And I think that's just the nature of the E-mini. S&P. So let me see. Was there any other points that I wanted to, oh, I wanted to make one other point, that if you guys remember that you can use 15-minute period, the 15-minute period between 1:15 and 1:30 Eastern time, okay, New York, as an opening range for the afternoon, and you can add above that a 3.5 point stretch and below it a 3.5 point stretch to come up with A points for the afternoon. Today's A up was at 21.25, right about here. Okay, so this was the A up point for the afternoon, and it had a hard time confirming that here, and that's why you have some resistance here. It pulls back, and then finally it's able to gain strength and push up into the 2104 area. So today was a great trade to fade the A. No reason to get out of it. You know, you fade here, 11 tick stop, and you have 17 points worth of profit here at the end of the day. And you could have added here at your A up. All right, guys, that's going to do it for today. And we'll look forward to talking to you again tomorrow, and we'll see you later.